last 12th grade, we'll call it parent education meeting now. Kristen and I, Mary Lyden, have been very happy to be helping out with all of this for 4 years. It's our last meeting too. Today we've got a great meeting set up for us, which I think will be imparting a lot of great information for our seniors that will be going off to do their own thing very soon. Today we have with us the Teen Talk counselor from New Canaan High School, Martha Rivon, and Gerard Gertson from Lamford, Tooley, and Ricci in New Canaan, here to talk to us about just some great stuff we need to know for when those kids are on their own. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Good morning. Jerry Gertson. I've been an attorney for 35 years now. I practice both in Manhattan, Westchester, and I run the Trust and Estates practice at Lamford, Tooley, and Ricci here in New Canaan for the last 13, 14 years or so. I'm also the parent of 2 girls who are in college, so I've been through this. I feel your pain. Is the application process over now, or the acceptance is in, or is this all done? Yeah? Okay, well, congratulations. Good luck to everyone. So I'm just here to talk through a few documents that are relevant to you and your children. Once your child hits the age of 18, they're a majority age. And so once that happens, you're going to have roadblocks in front of you as a parent to try to get information about certain things connected to your child's ongoing experience in college and life. One of them has to do with healthcare. You could very well now be blocked from discussing medical information with doctors now as a result of your child being of the age of 18 and an adult. So one of the things that many parents and children decide to do is to continue that relationship with medical professionals, allowing you to work with them if needed. Without the documents, the medical professionals really should not be communicating with you or imparting any information with respect to medical care or the medical history or anything at this point. And that comes as a shock, I think, to a lot of parents. I'm their mother, I'm their father. I'm used to calling up the doctor and talking to them about whatever I have to in connection with their medical care. Well, you're going to get stopped probably at this point. I had a client in a few weeks ago when we were doing this for their child, and they asked me, well, I'm their mother. Can't I just call the doctor? And I've got clients, not at this age, but older, that don't get along with their parents, right? And they would be upset if they knew that a doctor was giving information to a parent that they were not getting along with anymore. For example, that's an extreme example, but it does happen, and that's kind of just to illustrate the point, right? And so when the families come to me, and I've done this now for I think 4 years, and it's been I think a success because I think a lot of parents maybe don't realize it, and out there they don't understand that these issues are now in play, and as we cycle through the documents, I think you'll start to see, why they're in place and how they can be useful if you decide as a family to use them, right? I think I'll start here. We have it up on the screen. Is the healthcare form. The healthcare form really comprises of 4 different things. One is where your child would appoint someone as their healthcare agent to help make medical decisions. If they're unable to do so. I'm going to just read real quickly from the HIPAA statute, right? This is one of those times where I'll just have to read a little bit. So this is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. It protects the privacy of medical records and information. Doctors and medical facilities are not permitted to disclose information about patients without their permission. Okay, generally, parents will be able to obtain medical information about a minor, but once that child hits 18, which is, again, the age majority here in Connecticut, that avenue of information and discourse stops. For what it's worth, the only 2 states that don't have 18 are Alabama and Nebraska. They're 19, but it doesn't matter to us, right? But just, I don't know, cocktail conversation. Anyway, so let's take a look at the document here. This is an advanced directive, we call it, right? And again, it comprises of 4 different elements. The first is us now talking about appointing an agent, right? Appointment of a healthcare agent. So there, I blank would be your child, And here we're talking about them electing to choose someone to help make medical decisions if they can't on their own, right? When would that be? They're disabled, they had a car crash, or they had more likely a bad night in college. That's the one I see most often. They drank too much, they're being taken away in an ambulance, they're just non-responsive. If that is the case, this document's going to be helpful because you can present this to the medical professionals and say, I am the healthcare agent for my child. I have the authority to talk about their medical care. Connected to that, I'm going to break out a prop, I think, at this point. This is important. If you're using iPhones, if you're using Androids, I'm not sure exactly how to do it, but it's out there. It's not that hard. If you have iPhones, and if you're going to be pressing the top two buttons here, if you see my fingers, the top two buttons on your iPhones, right? Right here, you're going to see a slider that says Medical ID. If you want to give it a shot just to see if you have it set up, and when you go home, you can have your child do this too. When you slide it over, if you don't have it, that means you didn't set it up. You don't have your medical ID. It's important to have that. But when you slide it over, it's going to give who you are, your age. There's my weight before the pandemic. Here is like my contact information. And one of the important elements, you can put your blood type in here. So what EMS does is they're going to get the phone, they're going to press the two buttons, they're going to slide over the medical ID, they're going to see who the person is, who the victim is, right? And who to contact in the event of an emergency. Now, I had a client, again, a couple weeks ago, and she was at an airport performing CPR on someone that had a heart attack, I guess. And she was telling me, when the medics arrived, the first thing they did was press these two buttons, okay? Because an important element to this is not only who you are and what your medical information is, but it gives you the option to press the phone number of your emergency contact, which is what they did, okay? So that's...
Without the phone being unlocked.
Exactly. So you don't have to unlock the phone. So they can call, and they called immediately, and the person was saved, thankfully. But at least the medical professionals were able to contact the emergency contact listed in this medical ID.
Is that enough to get around HIPAA?
Well, here's the thing. If the forms are going to be signed, what you're going to do is have the healthcare agency form on your phone, for example, right? And so you can get part of the way there. You can know that there's an emergency. They'll tell you all of that, and this is, you're listed as emergency contact information. I don't know how far they'll get with. They'll probably say there's an emergency, there's a heart attack or a car crash. They'll go that far. I don't think that's really protected by HIPAA, really, I don't think. But when it comes to like digging into medical histories and all of that, making decisions, the idea here, the logistical track would be for them to press the two buttons, activate the medical ID, make the phone call, and then you would have what we do or your attorneys do on your phone, right? You just PDF everything, you have it on your phone. Doctors almost always, I've never seen a doctor not act on a PDF of a medical form. They don't need to see the originals, right? Yes, question?
I'm sorry if I missed it, but is this the same thing as the health app?
No.
Or it has the-
It's not the same thing. Are you using an iPhone?
Yeah.
Try to press the top two buttons. Power down your phone first. Don't power it off, just turn it off. And then press the top two buttons. And if you see like your ability to make a couple of calls, but without the medical ID there, it means you don't have it. Your credit card's coming in, okay. Yeah. I'm going to charge you later, okay? So we'll save that for later. Okay. But yeah, that's the idea. I mean, if you just Google it when you get home, you'll see, right? It's pretty easy to do. So how do you set your emergency contact? You would go to the contact for them, and if you scroll down to who you want to choose, you'll see that you have the ability to name them as your healthcare contact. Okay, and that's how you do it.
You can choose more than one.
Pardon?
You can choose more than one.
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you can put your health information, your health insurance information in there, things like this. Nova.
Sorry?
Do I have a Villanova hat there? Is that what I'm seeing?
No.
Oh, I can't see it. I don't have my, okay, because I was going to say my daughter's there now as a junior. Okay. Anyway, okay. All right, so we'll keep going. So there we go. So there you're naming a healthcare agent, your child would. Next is really, this is the grim stuff now. This is a living will, all right? A living will is a pull the plug doc, known as a pull the plug doc, all right? Now this is where I get the children come in. They really haven't maybe read the documents or thought it through, and I encourage them when they come see me to at least take a look at them, talk it through with their parents, try to cycle through what would you want to happen if you're in a coma and there's no hope of recovery. And if you look at the language, it talks about you're terminal, you're incurable, you're in a permanent coma, you're going to die within a relatively short period of time, you're in a vegetative state, you're not having any behavioral response to your environment. It's grim stuff, and the chances of it happening are like, next to zero. However, I find that all of this is a good exercise for the children to get them to understand that they're moving out of your umbrellas, in a sense, in some respects, and they have to start thinking about what it means to be an adult and how it relates to their health care and medical decisions and such. So even though it's uncomfortable to talk about, I find that the exercise of going through it is good for the children and the parents too. It's hard, and this is the one area here where the kids come in, they really haven't cycled through it, and then I get the deer in the headlights, and they're not sure. Some of them aren't ready. Some of them cross it out. Some do it. Some don't. But it's one of those areas that if they haven't talked it through before they come see me, it's hard for them, or anybody, or do it at home. It's hard for them to make a decision on the spot for these sorts of things, right? So I always encourage parents and the children to talk it through so they understand what it means. Let me get over to one quick, slightly different element to this. And here, okay, there's a difference for a female. If you look here, if I am pregnant, right, female's pregnant, and she's elected to pull the plug if she's in that irreversible vegetative state, but doing so would kill a baby, she can make an election here to keep the plug in until the baby is saved. Okay? It's grim, but this is, Connecticut must have run into this recently because it's relatively new. I say the last 2 years maybe. So they must have had this issue pop up and it needed to be addressed. Okay. Next is they want to be an organ donor. You can be an organ donor here. A lot of kids elect to do that when they get their driver's license. I believe in Connecticut, there's a red heart on the driver's license if they've elected to be an organ donor. We usually keep it consistent with that. But if they didn't want to do it and now they do want to do it, they can do it now. That's fine. Appointment of a conservator. A conservator is a person that just oversees the medical care of somebody that just is completely incapable of doing it. It's a more global type of appointment, I'd say. It goes beyond just making medical decisions. I'd like to keep the appointments on these documents consistent because some of the duties of the appointees overlap. And if I have different people doing different things, there could be some confusion. I'll put it that way. In fact, having practiced now in New York, and seeing how they do it, New York does not like to, because I get the question, well, can we both do it, the husband and wife, can we both be the agent for the child? Yes. New York takes the position that we don't want that, right? And I think the problem that they were having in New York was that when you appoint two people to help with making medical decisions, there could be a difference of opinion, right? And now you've got doctors caught in the middle of a battle, which they don't like. And so the doctors, from what I hear, have pressured the legislature to encourage, if not mandate, that we just have one appointee for the healthcare agent with a backup if you want, but to name two in the same spot, not impermissible in New York, but in Connecticut, but I like to follow the New York thought process on it because I think it makes sense. So I would prefer to see one appointee with a backup. Okay? All right, let's see. Let me get over to, so there's the healthcare. Let me stop. I think maybe what I'll do is just stop at the end of each of these. We're going to go through 4 docs altogether. Right? Any questions on any of the healthcare components here that we're talking about? Anything now? Nothing? Yes, question?
What are the most frequent use of the conservator piece? Like, I know it's broader than the health.
Yeah, I would say, now you're entering into contracts with rehabilitation centers, things like this. I would say nursing care, things of that nature. It's broader than just saying, yes, let's do this, procedure for the liver. It's beyond that. It's more, I'll call it more business related, if that's kind of a cruel way to put it, maybe, when we're talking about healthcare, but it's more like that, I would say, right? And again, we get back into, that's a good way to segue into, maybe I'll just talk about the power of attorney next, because the power of attorney is related to money. Now, this might not be relevant for a lot of children. They don't have assets yet, most of them, I suppose. Some do. But power of attorney really is just related to money, and it allows your attorney, in fact, to act on your behalf with respect to financial decisions going to the bank if you can't on your own, right? They're a powerful document. I like having them signed and effective immediately. Some out there like to use what are called springing powers, which only take effect upon the happening of an event. Usually it's a disability. I don't like doing it that way, because then you get into the question of when has the disability taken place, right? You're going to take your power with a springing power to the Bank of America, and their legal department's now going to look at it, and they're going to say, hold on a second, is this person really disabled? And now you're in a slog. You're in a battle with legal, trying to determine and to prove to them that there's been a disability, which I don't like. It's just another major roadblock you have to get through if you need to actually use the power quickly. And you may even get to the point where they're going to want to talk to doctors, get doctors' letters and things like this to ensure that they're not exposing themselves, the banks, to liability in the event they've got an attorney in fact coming in, taking money out or doing whatever. They don't want to get sued. It's a legal issue for them, really. So with the power, the way I like to use it, it's effective immediately. I get the question, all right, well, if that's the case, then, is there a gatekeeper, or is it a fail-safe mechanism in place where it's just not floating around out there? And the answer is yes. Most of my clients, 90% or more, have us hold the original powers with us in a safe with the other estate planning documents, and they give me the directive to not release the documents unless I hear from them or I speak to a doctor. It says they're incapacitated, and in that case, then we'll release it to the attorney, in fact, that comes in. The trick to these documents, especially when it comes to a power, because in 35 years of doing this, I've seen, not on my watch, but I have seen where people take effective powers and go help themselves to things, and it's not going to happen here with you and your family, but you want to be careful because you have powerful documents. They're related to finance. Your attorney, in fact, generally speaking, would have broad power to act on your behalf in a financial capacity. So the trick is to name a person you trust, always, when you're coming to any of these appointment issues with respect to either your will, your executors, your trustees for your kids, your appointees for what we call ancillary documents, which are these, the power of attorney in healthcare. You have to pick the person who is trustworthy and can have some financial wherewithal here to deal with money, right? Here, you're talking about you and your kids, so it's not going to be an issue really, but just taking a step back, and again, getting to why I like to use the powers that are effective immediately versus the springing, this is the reason. Okay, so this goes on, and the first set are just statutory. They just presume you want all of these, right? We build in some other like manuscripted powers that relate more to qualifying people for Medicaid if they need it. Some may be relevant, some not. This is pretty useful. I don't know, can you see if I highlight, can I highlight this? No, I really can't do any highlighting, but at V, we do use this where someone's incapacitated, they can't get to their emails, so this gives the attorney, in fact, the ability to manage digital devices. I do have clients, and this can relate to students too, in W. I have a lot of clients in the arts, both music and acting, and so This is important if your child is ever going to have any intellectual property interests that they may need managed if they're unable to do so themselves. Copyrights can get really complicated, especially when someone gets disabled. And so that's in there for this. And there's, a few other things in here that we just put in over and above, like pets. If they have a pet, somebody can take care of their pet kind of thing. Go to the, all right. So there's the power. I'd say probably less relevant to your situation because many children just don't have their own assets right now. The one thing that I think you maybe should keep in mind, if there was ever an account set up for them, a custodial account, custodial accounts are controlled by what's called the Uniform Transfers to Minors Act. It's basically a nationwide act. Most states follow. And if you did set up a custodial account for the child, when they hit 21, the custodianship ends, okay? So that's something to consider. Now, like my daughter is 21 next week. I'm getting letters in from Schwab and places like that where we had accounts set up for her saying, you're gonna be taken off, right? And we're no longer dealing with you. So you'll see that on custodial accounts that you may have set up with your children over the years. So just keep that in mind. And there is an example of an account when they hit 21 that these powers can be useful for. If they need you to do something, if they're studying abroad or something and they need you to do something at home with their finances, these documents can be helpful. All right, so there's our power. Let me get into, let's see, let me get into the FERPA. And for that, I have to turn to, because the FERPA, let me just get to, I have a couple of notes on that I'd just like to read from on that. Let me just get to it here. Okay, FERPA, that's the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act is what it's called. It's a federal rule and it protects privacy of students in college, right, and high school too, I think. It gives the parents and students certain rights with respect to records, right? And again, I have a junior at Villanova. I just pulled Villanova's disclosure, FERPA disclosure statements right off of their website and cut and pasted it in here. And I'll just read some of it. It says, Villanova, in accordance with the FERPA, has adopted this student record policies to address the following issues with respect to education records. 1, disclosure of directory information. 2, confidentiality of personally identified information. And 3, student rights to inspect, review, and seek amendment of their records. Okay. In general, education records are defined as records maintained in any form by the university that are directly related to the students. So it's a long-winded, relatively easy, digestible, though, act. You can read it if you're interested in reading through it. There are certain things that colleges can disclose to the public. Child's a basketball player, they're 6'10", their weight, their height, things like this can be disclosed. Many things cannot be disclosed. Any health care, of course, academic records, any violations that they may have encountered along the way as a student, things like that are protected. So what you'll see here is us using a waiver form that the parents would utilize to access certain records for the student when they start school. And I think the most popular one is academic records. They're not going to release to you academic records, even though you're paying the bills, right? Which sounds ridiculous, but that's just the way it is. They're adults, again, and adults have rights, and these are students. You're paying the bills, that's fine, but doesn't give you the right to dig into their accounts in college. So this waiver here, we have the kids sign, and once that's done, it enables the parents to access educational records. Now, being a parent, having gone through this, I can tell you when you start your orientation process with the schools, a lot of them will have this form built into it. That's been my experience. I have one at Lehigh, one at Villanova. I believe they both did it. So it may already be in there. But I I think for my oldest, I needed it once, and it wasn't in there. She just checked the wrong box or whatever when she went through the orientation website answering the questions. And I used it, and it worked, and I sent it over to Nova, and I got what I needed. I think the other thing that's protected here, and this gets tricky, just brace yourself, and I'm not an expert in this at all, but the financial aid applications that you have to make are a bear. I mean, I think I tried it once and just gave up, and I haven't done it since, so I'm not an expert in it. But there's two components to it. There's a FAFSA application that works together with another application you have to make for other types of financial aid. Each college also probably has their own programs with respect to financial aid. Like I know Lehigh this year, just passed a component to their aid package that talks about if a family makes less than $75,000, you go for free, right? And I just saw yesterday where 400 of their incoming freshmen have qualified for that. So there may be components to that whole financial aid application process, of which I am not an expert at, but that may be specific to the college, right? But having this waiver in place certainly is going to be helpful with respect to you as parents accessing certain records of your children. Now, connected to that, I would recommend that as soon as you can, get your child to give you access to what's called a parent portal. They can elect to give you access to certain types of information the child can through the parent portal. What happens is when the kids get off to college, they get busy, they're swept up in the whole new experience, and their communication with you is going to start to slow down, okay? As they get busy, right? One of the things that they're not going to be too interested in is signing you up to investigate everything that they're doing in college, right? Now they're out there on their own. They're trying to make a stand, become adults, and the sooner you can get them to give you access to the parent portal, the better, I would say. Because if 6 months goes by or a year goes by and you shoot that text off to them, oh, by the way, you're not going to hear back for a while, okay? It's just not going to happen. That's been my experience anyway. So the parent portal is pretty key, I think, for you being able to, take a look at what they're doing. Like I remember for my oldest, I just wanted to know who her professors were. I didn't even know that, right? I mean, who are these people that teaching my child? I didn't know who they were. So I told her, I said, I at least want to see who's teaching you, just out of curiosity, right? I really couldn't even get in to see that. And so there are things like that you're going to be, there's going to be roadblocks there for you as a parent. I do, and there's part of me too that, you're here in high school, and what is it? Is it the parent, not the parent portal, but I forgot what they called it here. It's like where you can access your child. Yeah, Power School, right. We all obsessively check the Power School to check every quiz, I found that, once the kids got out there and they're in college, for me, this is me personally, I just gave them space. I'm not going to sit there and badger them about them getting a C on a quiz or something. Maybe I would have done that in the 9th grade here, but they're trying to be adults. They're trying to get out there on their own. They're trying to take that step forward, right, without their parents looking over every single thing that they're doing. And I'm talking about me personally. Everyone parents their own way, right? But I just found that, and as time went on, I found that their interest in involving me with what they're doing became less and less. Not that they still don't love me or anything. It's just that they're trying to make their own mark, I think, right? I remember, wondering, like, why didn't my child not tell me they're at, the New Canaan Public Library? This is strange. Well, they usually keep in touch with me. And now it's like, why hasn't my child not told me they're in Berlin, right? So you start to see that happen, and it's an adjustment for you as a parent, I'd say, if it was for me. But You'll learn. You'll learn what they want, what they don't. You try as a parent to stay involved. You want to be interested. You want to see what's going on. But you might get to the point where you're not going to power school this, where you're pressing the button every 3 days to see how they're doing, and then hitting them up they're under a lot of stress and pressure as it is, transitioning into this whole new life of theirs. And to have that, for me, just wasn't really like, and I feel like a lot of their friends kind of were the same way, they're down there doing it. They're doing the best they can. So there's me just interjecting my personal, experience as a parent now going through this in real time for you. Let me just see here. So we've covered the healthcare instruments. We've covered we've covered the power, the FERPA. The question I get sometimes too on the healthcare is, well, my child, speaking of being abroad, all right, you've signed the documents here in the United States, right? And typically I would say junior year is the year they go abroad. Are these documents valid where they're going? Most of the countries, and I'll put it this way, right? Most of the countries that these children are going to are friends of ours, right? Friends of the United States. We're not sending them into war zones or crazy places, to do their semester abroad, really. So I would say yes. I mean, I can't speak to every country. It can get complicated, or every hospital or doctor that you deal with. But I would say this: the abroad experience. So even like my daughter's in Copenhagen now, so it's one of these places where they speak English immediately. They're all fluent and they understand us and we get along. We're friends of theirs, right? They'll respect what it is that we're doing. Would be my guess. Thankfully, I haven't had to use it or anything. I do get the question, well, should I have them also sign documents through attorneys over there just to cover us? You could do it that way, I suppose, just to layer it up. But what happens on these semesters abroad is this: you go to you're settled in Copenhagen, for example, and I want to say my daughter's been to maybe 7 different countries. Half of them I don't even know she's going to most of the time. They're just bouncing around to different countries all over the world. So yeah, it might work for part of the time when you're in Copenhagen, but when they're bouncing around to Spain or wherever, who knows, Good to have it in place, good to have it on your phone, good for them to have it, good to have them do the medical ID that we just talked about, which is going to go a long way, because the iPhones are universal. They'll know how to press the 2 buttons over there too if something goes wrong, right? So I think it's important just to have the basics set up here. And then just, if you're more comfortable as a parent having them do documents over there that are similar, fine. But just know that when they do go abroad, they're not in their home base that much, really. Maybe half the time, I would say, that kind of thing. Let me just see what else we have here. Okay, so I think we covered, let me just go through real quick to see if I have any written notes for you on any of this. We call it the semester abroad. Okay. I think that's pretty much it with respect to the legal part of this and what I see. So then there I'll open it up to any questions that anyone might have on any of this. Anybody? Yes?
Can you just tell me the names of the forms again?
Yeah, I mean, I just call the advanced directive form is for the healthcare. And then we did durable power of attorney would be the durable power of attorney. And by durable, it means that it survives incompetency. So if one of your children becomes incompetent, God forbid, it survives incompetency. FERPA waiver, FERPA waiver. Those are the 3 basics that we use. Yeah, it's the Federal Educational and Rights Privacy Act form that deals with you now having your child sign a waiver, allowing you as a parent to access academic records, for example. Yes?
On the university side of things, any tips for what we should look out for, be wary of waiver of liability or documents that the universities will give us in the registration process that might conflict with this or might have different options?
Right. What we do when the kids come see us is
separate all of
these documents and scan them separately for them, right? This way, if they want to take their healthcare document, they can just send it to the nurse's office, for example, right? Or their FERPA waiver, they can send it right to the registrar. So our experience has been to separate the documents for the college kids, because each one of those documents may need to go to a different office in the college. So that may answer part of the question. The colleges, all of them, I would say, have a very vetted and tried and true methodology with respect to the orientation process and the form work that you're going to see as you go through and your child goes through doing what they have to do to complete the application process. Not application process, it's the orientation process is the best way I can describe it. Each college might call it different, welcome package or whatever they call it. So you may see some of these issues being addressed in there. I wasn't too, involved with them going through all of that, because I think that was just them answering questions. But a lot of these sorts of things are addressed within those processes as your child starts to begin the exercise of starting school. They have to fill them out before they can step foot on the campus, and a lot probably has to do with waivers of liability or all those sorts of things, right? That's really not what I'm addressing here. Those are college-specific, I will say, and each college might handle it slightly differently, right? But it can't hurt for your child to take what we're doing and then just farm them out to whoever needs to see them, what office needs to see what from our perspective for what we're doing. It can't hurt to layer it up. Like I mentioned, my daughter at Villanova, I used the FERPA for her. Here, I thought she did it. She checked the box saying, yes, I'm waiving the FERPA. She just didn't. She thought she did, but she didn't. It wasn't on record. So it can't hurt to layer things up too, right? I'm just trying to think if there's anything that I recall them discussing with me about that whole exercise, and it's just not hitting me right now. I'm sorry, but we do what we can up to the point that we can do it, and then the college takes over from there with respect to these processes that they have to get them going, get them in there. Just on a social note, I remember them I asked them, I said, well, about the roommate, are you going through roommate selection and all that, or are you getting too close to it, right? I remember them telling me that it's like a 50-50 split almost as to whether the roommate works, even if they connect with them through social media. A lot of times they don't really know who they are, through the social media process, because it's hard to tell somebody who somebody is just through social media. So I wouldn't stress out really too much about, roommate selection or anything like that, even if they get to know them through social media. My daughters were telling me it's like a half and half split. Works half the time, sometimes it doesn't, but that's just part of life, moving on, learning how to deal with people. Yeah. Ms. Leiden.
Regards to the durable power of attorney.
Yes.
Presuming that at some point, all of our children will be like grown-ups, right? Like
Yes.
outside of college, et cetera. And it might not be appropriate to have a parent having a durable power of attorney at that point in time.
Right.
Married, for example.
Right.
Can something like this document be date-specific for their time in college, or once it's executed, then it has to be revoked or something?
Right, it's a good question. I have seen powers that have expiration dates. I've never done that, because let's say, for example, you have a child that has a car crash, right? And now they're disabled, and I've got a 4-year expiration on my power. You might still need it, and they're not in a position to sign a new one because they're disabled. So I don't like putting expirations on things like powers. The FERPA will have an expiration, because that's dealing with, you hope they get out in the 4 years, or you're Belushi 6, yes, so the FERPA will have like a range of dates there that expire, All of these documents can be revoked. And I always tell the kids when they come in that I'm working for them, right? I may have worked for some of you too, but if I'm not sensing a conflict and the kids are okay with it and everyone's all right with me working for the child too, I don't really experience conflicts much in this situation. And I tell them, come to me, we can change it, we can revoke it, whatever you'd like. So everything that we're doing here is revocable, and I make that very clear to them. Triggering events would be marriage, for example, right, or partner, you have a partner now, you may want them to take over these responsibilities versus your parents. So it's a good question. Okay. Anything else? All right. Yes.
Sorry. On the power of attorney, can have two power of attorneys, yes?
You can have two attorneys, in fact, correct.
Does that mean you need both signatures or either or?
It's up to them. We can structure it so that we need joint, we have a joint responsibility where they both have to act, or we can do it in the alternative, where either one can act. It's up to the principal, the client, the person that signs it. I get the question too, the geography sometimes matters here, not really because you're all here in New Canaan, but, if I have an attorney, in fact, that's living in California and one here in New Canaan, it's nice to have the alternate set up because the one in California might not be able to help us logistically, they're too far away, or I have the one in New Canaan that's right here, right? But then I have some come in and say, well, I don't trust, this is not related to really your kids or anything, but I don't trust, one of them so much, I want somebody to look over what they're doing, then we'll have it joint. Okay? But the answer is yes, you can do whatever you want as a principal. Yes?
Is there any reason to have an attorney in the state that they're going to school, or is it okay to have them in Connecticut?
Okay, you're talking about like a lawyer?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. One of the things that we also talk about when the kids come in is it happens. Kids, they do stupid things. They get caught up in some trouble or whatever, right? They're domiciled here, I would say. That would be my position. They are domiciled here in Connecticut. They're in college, but their tax returns are here. Their principal residence is here, even though they're in college. So I would say not necessary. And I do tell the kids that if something happens where you get swept up in like trouble, I do give this talk to them too. It's the usual drill that an attorney would tell a client. Do not say anything to authorities. Don't offer information if you feel like you're being pressured to do so. If something bad happened and you're caught up in something that just went south, right? Tell them you have a lawyer and you want to speak to them. Right then the questioning needs to stop. It's sort of the same thing you see your auto insurance, for example, tell you. If you're in a car accident, don't admit you did anything wrong, right? Because you might not have. And so one of the things we tell the kids is, like, I'm working for you, I'm reachable. If you need to contact me, something happens, you get into trouble, something goes wrong, contact us. Do not talk to authorities, even if it's the cops on campus or whatever. It's probably all admissible, all right, against them. And a lot of times you may think you did something wrong, but you didn't, right? So the answer to your question, I would say, is no. If they have somebody here that they can say is their lawyer, which would be, whoever your lawyer is, it's fine. Just let them know. That should suffice. But it's a good question. Okay. All right. Anything else from anybody? I guess that's about it. I can be reached. People do ask, all right, if we're working for you, we just reduce our fees for the college kids down to $450 for everything. It includes all of our discussions with them and walking them through the docs, answering questions or whatever. Usually we charge more than that, about double for doing this for non-college students. But, we're just doing a service here in a sense, I suppose, and so that's how we see it. If they do come in to see us, I'll give you a phone number. That's probably the best way. If you want to take my phone, I'll give you my city phone. All of my voicemails through my city phone are transcribed and emailed to me. It's 212-888-2422. So it's 212-888-2422. And again, I'd be happy to help if you think you need us. If not, I will get to your lawyer, or you can try it on your own too if you'd like. I do notice that the one thing, and I'm not trying to sell anything here really, it's just that I find that when the kids come to see us, they're now dealing with a third-party lawyer, right? And they're starting to see that, okay, I'm moving out of my parents' universe and into something different, which I find to be useful for them, just from a psychological perspective, just to take that step. Now they're starting to understand, like, all right, my parents just can't call my doctor anymore, and I have to start to think about, pull the plug instruments or whatever, right? For whatever it's worth. So if it's not me, go to your lawyer maybe and have them review these things with you too. Okay? All right, and there we are. Okay.
I'll take from here then. I'm Marta Huitron. I'm the teen talk counselor here at the New Canaan High School. I've been here since January. I'm super happy to be able to support kids in all the emotional piece that they want and expanding the support the school counselors and all the mental health staff here at school give. So I will, thank you. And when the PFA asked me to talk about this, it really hit very close to home because I have a senior at high school, and it's my eldest, and I'm sending her to college in the fall. So I feel you, and I'm really going through the same thing that you are going to. So by this time, kids have survived 4 years of high school, have gained academic and social skills, have gone a very long and stressful application process. They are ready to jump into the adventure that college is. However, us as parents, we're not. If you're here, something tells me that you have been working in this parenting project for 18 years at least. So you have more or almost 2 decades of experience. What I could tell you is to please be confident on what you have achieved. The kids have, or most of the kids have the elements, the necessary elements to make it to college. I like to say that we're changing roles. We're stepping down as directors, and we're stepping up as board advisors. They are taking the lead. We are still needed. We're going to still be important for them, but the decisions are not going to be in our hands. However, it is very important, as Jerry said, to continue communication. Continue about what is important in your family: drugs, romantic relationships, outings, values, all the things that you have talked to them so far, continue to do it. And be conscious of your feelings. Brené Brown wrote in a book that you can't give what you don't have. If you don't have confidence in your kid, you're going to transmit it to your kid. So the calmer and more confident that you are, the more calmer and confident that they are going to be. If you're very anxious about them leaving the house, pretty much you're going to have an anxious kid beside you, worrying if they need or they have going to do well at college or not. The first thing that you need to do is to plan for a smooth mental health transition. How do you do that? Most likely, you already have begun. And not this year, you have been planning for this transition a couple of years for now. So the first thing that you need to do, remind your kid about the emotional problem-solving skills that they have acquired. Every challenge that they would face, it will be better for them to stop and slow down. I once saw a meme that said that everything began to work again if unplugged for a few minutes, including ourselves. Sometimes if we stop, if we see the challenge we're facing, if we stop to breathe, then we know what to do. We need to remind our kids about that. Remind them that they have the answers inside them. They're going to be able to come to solutions, to trust their gut. And of course, if needed, they can and they must talk to someone. As far as we have here, we have trying to fix everything for them. Don't do that. So please stop fixing things for them and try for them to figure things out. From laundry to cooking to medical appointments to decisions if they're taking the car. Most kids are not taking cars for college, but all the decisions around them, let them figure it out. I think right now they are with these mixed feelings. From one part, they're eager to get out of the house, to go to college, to live their lives. And at the same time, they're with fear of stepping out. One day they want to eat the world. The other day they're just like a little boy or girl that doesn't want to go out, and the fear of what is going out there. It's totally normal and expected. Here, validation comes a long way. So, for example, if your kid comes and said, I don't know if I'm going to make friends up there. I know because it has happened to me. Our mama bear jumps into the action and said, oh, don't be silly. You're going to make friends day one. You'll see. But that is not validating what they're feeling, because it is true. And it is something that it's very important for them, and that, they are thinking about it. So instead of that, validation would hear something like, I hear you. It is you're right. It is totally, it makes sense that you're afraid of that. I felt the very same way when I went to college. But I am confident that you're going to make friends. Some strategy that can help them is to challenge unhelpful thinking. This comes from CBT therapy, or cognitive behavioral therapy, and is to bring those unhelpful thoughts to trial. So let's see, the very same thought of, I'm not going to make friends up there. Instead of saying, no, that's not true, take that thought into a trial. Said something like, what are the evidence that you have that you're not going to make friends up there? And not about what you think, like the evidence. What are the facts that you are basing that you're not going to make friends? And list them. Then you go to the other side. Okay, now let's think about the evidence that you have that you are going to have friends in college. And you list them. Is this the first time that you ever gone to a new place? Have you made friends in new friends before? If you have, why are you not going to be able to do friends again? So these kind of strategies, these kinds of mental techniques will help them to be more confident and to step out of the house with more confidence. And of course, underline the importance of self-care. From sleep eating, from eating habits, they're going to have an all-nighter at college, that's okay, but they need to know that sleep is something important for them. And eating a balance of food is going to be also needed. Coping strategies I like to think about them as a toolbox. If you want to hang a picture, you need a hammer. However, if you need to unscrew something, that hammer is not going to help you. That's the same as coping strategies. It's better for them to have a group of coping strategies for them to use in several occasions. For example, one of my coping strategies is to cuddle with my pet, my dog. I love it, and it's very helpful. However, when I'm here at school, if that would be my only coping strategy, good luck with that, because my dog's not here. So I have to have other coping strategies at hand to use them in the moment. If one doesn't work, let's try the other one, and then try the other one if that doesn't work. The best moment to practice and to have coping strategies is when you are calm and when there's not a crisis. It's the same as sports. You don't start training or you don't start running right before the race. You start training when there's calm, when there's not a competition going on. And so if they don't have coping strategies, guide them. See what they like. Listening to music, seeing a movie, journaling, coloring, going for a walk. There are a lot of strategies that can help. Make them have a list of what they can use. Jerry talked about roommates, and that's one of the key elements. One of my advices is for them to set boundaries, not only in roommates, but in every relationship they will have in college. They don't know who can trust or don't trust. Until they do, establish boundaries. With the roommate, they can be assertive. It's better for them to say that I like that is not going to work with me, that is going to work with me, instead of just agreeing with something just to be polite or because it's my roommate and I don't know what she or he is going to think about me. From day one, talk about food, talk about guests, talk about noise or light in the room. And remember that even though they agree with something the first day, nothing is step on stone. So they can, go back and talk about it again. Communication here is key. And remind them that they are their own priority. They need to be on top of their list. No one needs and can to go before them. If they have that in mind, then they're going to be, they will have one more element for success. What if they have a current mental health issue? First of all, they're not going to be alone. The American College of Health Association last year made a survey where they interviewed more than 50,000 students across 100 schools, and this is all across the country. So they really made a representative sample. What they found was that 36% of the students in college and 28% of the students had anxiety and depression. So, one, they're not going to be alone. And two, let's figure it out what they can do or we can do as parents to help them if they're one of those kids that have these issues. If they have a current mental health issue, the first thing that they need to do is to plan what they want or not want to share. And that goes from diagnosis to the medications. Maybe it's not going to be very wise for them to say and to share that they're taking a medication. And it is true for any kind of medication, but it is most certainly true for stimulants like Adderall. So they, at first, they don't know who can trust. And until that, it is very for them to be shy or discreet on those terms. If they have a therapist, make plans with a therapist about of how and if the sessions are going to continue. And a big no here is just stop the therapy or just stopping sessions because they're going to college. A lot of college kids continue their sessions via online, and I think that the pandemic helped a lot of therapists having the ability to do online sessions, even though in separate states. See and talk to the therapist if they need to contact the mental health service department right away and plan something with them or not, and make an emergency plan. What will the student or your kid needs to do step by step if something comes up and they can't contact the therapist right away? There usually is a list of 4 or 5 steps. Number 1, apply one coping strategy. That doesn't help. Who I can talk to? If that doesn't help, then to the following step and the following step. It is very important to remind them that they know themselves. They know when something is changing. They know if something doesn't feel good. If I am sadder than before. If I am not eating as well as before. So just remind them, encourage them to talk to someone before a crisis arises. It's better for them to talk to someone and say, it's not a crisis, but let's talk about it, than when we're in a crisis or in the middle of a storm. If they take medication, a big no, please, is not to stop the medication just before they go to college. They need to contact the prescriber doctor for them to see how are they going to refill the medication, how are they, if they're going to the prescriber doctor is going to send the prescription to a pharmacy, or if your kid is going to have all the medication with him. It is important for them to understand how does the medication works and what are the interactions with other substances like drugs and alcohol. And finally, how are they going to store it? There has been cases of stolen stimulants in college. So if they are going to have medications in the room, how are they going to securely store it? Amazon and other websites sell specific case with locks that they can have the medication locked. They can hit that in their room. Sometimes what is easier is for them to have pill sorters just for the week and have a week length supply, and then all the other refills or all the other supply of the medications hidden and locked. It is important for them, until they know who can trust, never to leave the door of the room open. Because if someone knows that there is medication there and someone knows that they have Adderall or other stimulant, they are risking for someone to go into the room, search a case, and stall it. how can we support our kids from here? First, let's return to the validation. If they call us something like, you know what, I hear you. Yes, it must be really something, what are you telling me? Appreciate it. They are grown-ups. They don't need us anymore, or at least as much as before. So if they call and they say, I need help, verbally tell them that you appreciate that. And say, you know, it must have been difficult for you to make this phone call. I appreciate for you for doing that. And finally, refer. And that could be refer to resources. A resource could be your supporting talk, and that maybe is all that they need. Or maybe they need more support or a professional, mental health professionals. So if needed, refer them to the resources. Set expectations for communications. Maybe we as a parents will want to know from them as soon as they begin, open the first thing in the morning and the last thing before they turn off to bed. Maybe that's not going to be doable, and that's not going to be something realistic. So set expectations before they go. When and how are they going to communicate with you? The first 6 weeks are important. Where there's going to be, adjusting. So communicate more in those first 6 weeks. After that, as Jerry said, you're going to see that the communication starts, being less and less. My advice is if they don't reply to a text or a phone call right away, don't panic. Don't think that catastrophe has hit, that emergency is under the way. Do you remember the challenging strategy that I talked before? That same strategy can help very much you as a parent. So when your kid doesn't answer a text, and it has happened to me even now at high school, he hasn't or she hasn't answered my text. Well, what evidence do I have that it's an emergency? What evidence do I have that she's in trouble? And the other way around, what evidence do I have that she's okay? I can see that, I don't know, in the morning she told me she was going to a party with the friends. So that could help your sanity. If possible, talk to them through FaceTimes and phone calls. There are a lot of times that kids come into our car, and just by seeing them or by hearing a hello, we know that something went wrong that day. So if we limit our communication to text, there's a lot of information that we could be missing. So a text once in a while is okay, or a phone call and a FaceTime once in a while is okay, but don't discharge them. You could be missing in a lot of information. We are board advisors now. We're not the directors. They make the decision. If they call and they don't know what to do, provide directional assistance. Ask them to come to options. Guide them to analyze the pros and cons of every option. And I want to underline the word guide. Don't tell them. It's just a guidance that you're going to do. For any person, it could be daunting to go to a place that we don't know anyone in the first time. So encourage them to participate in social activities. Every college have welcoming events at the first days of school. Encourage them to go there. If they go there, if they start making friends, they're going to be be part of the community, to feel part of the community, and that will help them. And if needed, there are a lot of resources at college, from advisors to mental health services. Encourage them to use them. What things we need to look for? What things are those red flags that say to us, there's something here? Changes in regular behaviors for more than 2 weeks. And here I want to underline more than 2 weeks. If it's just a couple of days, that doesn't mean that there's something. Isolation. How can you see isolation in college kids? See what are they talking about or not talking about when they call you. Are they talking about friends, new friends? Are they not talking about people they meet? When are they calling you? Are they calling you Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for 2 hours each time? That would be awesome for us as parents, but does that mean they're not, integrating themselves in social activities? So little things like that can help. If they are overwhelmed one day, no big deal. It's college. It is expected for them to be overwhelmed a little bit. If they're angry or overwhelmed, every single time you talk to them, and for more than 2 weeks, let's investigate what's going on. Again, all-nighters. An all-nighter is common, and they're going to experience it in college. But if they stop sleeping, or if their sleeping habits change drastically, or if they gain or lose weight, then that's another thing that you want to investigate. And as Jerry mentioned, if you have the FERPA waiver, and if you see that all their grades are suffering, and I said all, it's not just one quiz, it's not just like the whole academic stuff is suffering, then maybe you want to investigate what is going on. All colleges have resources available to kids. They go from on-campus counseling, from crisis and emergency resources, online therapy, peer and support groups, and mental health apps. What I recommend is to investigate how does the mental health services for the specific college of your kid works. They are called usually CAPS, that is for counseling and psychology services. And the best way to do that is just to Google the name of the college plus mental health services. For example, University of Michigan Mental Health Services. That will lead you to the website of the college. Of course, they have access to the national helplines. That 988 is the National Suicide and Crisis Line. It is 24/7, and they can access it via phone or text. And NAMI, that is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, have a helpline. The only problem with that helpline is that it is only from Monday to Friday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And they can call that number. if any of you want to contact me or your students want to contact me, the students, before they leave, they can go into my office. My office is right across the nurse's office, or they can send me an email. That over there is my email. And for you, if any of you want to contact me, by email is fine, or that number that is there is my direct line to my office. I don't know if anyone has a specific question. Yes.
Is there evidence of times that are more predictably difficult for the transition? Like I've noticed sometimes kids have a crisis in February break of their first year or something. Is there some patterns there that are helpful to look out for? Or
Instead of patterns, I think something to look out is, for example, if they come for Thanksgiving and they don't want to go back to campus, that's a red flag. That is something that we need to investigate. Or if they call and they constantly say that they want to come back to home, then something is going on. The first 6 weeks are going to be crucial because it's their adjustment period. So I said that it's where more communication is needed. After that, of course, the mental health pressure will go up in end of the semesters or test period, so that kind of moments. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
No,
Nice job.
thank you.
Nice job, Michael. All right, it was nice meeting you. Nicely done.
Very nice.